We do have someone from Campus Federal here today. I think we have Brian. And so Campus Federal is very generous in sponsoring this speaker series for us. They're a great supporter of the Ag College. And we always try to partner with them as much as we can on different initiatives. And so, Brian, I think I have you on the call to say a few words. Maybe on mute, Brian.
All right. Can you? Yes. Thank you so much for having me today. Campus Federal is happy to partner with the College of Agriculture and the Agriculture Student Association for the Alumni Speaker Series. We know that you will hear some very valuable words today, and we're just glad to be a part and able to help bring this to you. Campus Federal is here to serve your financial needs, whether it's student accounts, later on once you graduate with your professional lives, we can assist with that as well too. We are conveniently located on campus, and if you're not on campus, we are remote. We have the remote services that can assist as well. You know, I want to thank Lindsay and Amanda and the College of Ag staff for putting this together and for making us part of the process. My information, I will put it in the chat box. If you have questions for me about Campus Federal, I'll be happy to answer them offline at a later date and time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. We appreciate that. And again, we can't thank Campus Federal enough for sponsoring this series and partnering with the College of Agriculture. And so right now I'm going to bring on, well, first, at the end of the speaker series, we're going to have a brief survey. But ask that you guys take a minute to complete it utilizing this link. Again, we always want to improve upon what we're doing for our students, and so we want your feedback. And so just take a few minutes. It really will take less than 20 seconds to complete the survey. And so I'll give you the link as we finish up as well. And then I'm going to introduce Cole Hardy. He's our Ag Student Association president, and he's going to introduce our speaker. Cole.
Hello, everyone. Mr. Kenneth West II serves as Chief Operating Officer of Regional Medical Center of San Jose, located in San Jose, California. Regional Medical Center is an affiliate hospital of HCA Healthcare based in Nashville, Tennessee, where over the past 12 years, Ken has advanced with increasing responsibilities and operations. His roles have included administrative resident, assistant administrator, associate COO, and COO of hospitals in Virginia, Florida, and California. His areas of experience include general operations, P&L management, strategic planning, service line development, technology evaluation, labor union management, real estate development, and over $500 million worth in healthcare construction. Ken has been recognized by the California Diversity Council as one of Northern California's top 50 diverse leaders in 2020 and awarded the ACHE Service Award by the American College of Healthcare Executives and the California Association of Healthcare Leaders in 2020, and was also featured by Becker's Hospital Review Rising Stars as one of the top 25 healthcare leaders under the age of 40 in 2014. Throughout his career, Ken has served on numerous boards and committees. Within HCA Healthcare, Ken currently serves as a board member of the Leadership Institute Advisory Board, as a division lead for the Chief Operating Office Development Initiative, and as an executive mentor for the HCA Healthcare Leadership Excellence Program and HR Leadership Development Program. Ken earned a bachelor's degree in nutritional sciences from Louisiana State University here in Baton Rouge, where he served as president of the Student Dietetic Association, was a member of Leadership LSU, and awarded the Louisiana Dietetic Association's Most Outstanding Dietetic Program Student Award in 2005. As a Ronald E. McNair Research Scholar, he co-authored 3 abstracts and 2 manuscripts through the School of Human Ecology and the College of Agriculture. He later completed a dietetic internship with North Oaks Health System in Hammond, Louisiana, where he was also awarded the Louisiana Dietetic Association's Most Outstanding Dietetic Intern Award in 2006. He holds a master's degree in health systems administration from Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., where he attended as a Hospital Corporation of America Incorporated Corus Boyd Scholar and served as president of the Healthcare Executives of Georgetown University. He completed postgraduate training in operations integration at Johns Hopkins Health System and holds a certification in lean healthcare from Belmont University Massey Graduate School of Business in Nashville, Tennessee. He is a board certified healthcare executive and a fellow of the American College of Healthcare Executives. He holds memberships in the American College of Healthcare Executives, the National Association of Healthcare Executives, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and Sigma Pi Phi Fraternity. He has a passion for mentorship and technology. Ken lives in San Jose, California, with his wife Erica and 2 children, Penelope and Kenneth III. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Ken West.
All right, thank you. Looks like I got an honorary doctorate degree as well. So thank you, Colt. I really appreciate that, and thank you to Lindsay as well for inviting me to participate. And thank you to all the students and faculty and administrators who are here today to participate as well. It gives me great pleasure to have the opportunity to come back to my alma mater, at least virtually, and hope to impart some knowledge and some insight into my experiences as a student there on campus. It's been amazing. It's been a lot of years. I guess 2005 is when I graduated, so 15 years ago, and nearly 20 from when I started there. So it's amazing how the time flies by. So today I hope that I can share some insights, give you a little bit of background into or insight into my background, how I, matriculated, where I come from, how I got to LSU, and what I've been doing since then in those times. And at the end, open up for any questions that I can answer for the team and additional words of wisdom I might be able to relate. So with that, we'll go to the next slide. All right, so early beginnings. I'm a native of Louisiana as well. It's a picture of me. I think I was probably 4 or 5. I'm from a small town, I'm not sure if you all may be aware of, called Ponchatoula, Louisiana. It's a Choctaw Native American word that really is Panchi y Tula, which is for the hanging hair, which is the Spanish moss that was on the cypress trees in the swamps and marshes. I actually didn't know how small my hometown was until about 5 years ago. I happened to be telling someone about it. I Googled it and went to the Wikipedia page and realized that it was actually only 4.2 square miles and a population of about 7,000. It was 5,000 when I was a kid there. So I thought it was much larger, but clearly I was wrong. So I was raised by a fireman. My father was a fireman for 25 years in the Hammond Fire Department. And my mother has been a small business owner for probably about 20 years, primarily in the IT tech space. Years ago, she started with just computer repair. So many people who were kind of illiterate and had these big clunky computers didn't know what to do with them. She kind of self-taught herself and was really the neighborhood and community person who would repair people's computers and download software, things of that nature. As I progressed through the Tangipahoa Parish Ponchatoula school system, I graduated from Ponchatoula High School. I had the honor and opportunity of graduating as one of the valedictorians of my high school. which afforded me future opportunities. One being a sort of a dean's or chancellor's scholarship to LSU, as well as TOPS, like many of you all may be taking advantage of as well. And one of the most important things was I also had the opportunity to participate in one of the my first of a couple TRIO programs, which is a nationally federally funded educational program cohort, if you will. And I was a part of Upward Bound. And so it gave me the opportunity to actually start college when I was still in high school. So actually, in my junior year of high school, I started college at my local college there at Southeastern Louisiana University, which was, I think, 5 or 6 blocks from my parents' home still today. And so it gave me great exposure to being on the college campus as a high school student. And I went back the following, throughout my senior year of high school, and then also the summer after I graduated from high school as well. So from a credit standpoint, I was technically a sophomore when I started, although I still ended up using the entire 4 years to matriculate. And so that led me to, I wanted to go to really just LSU. I mean, as growing up as a kid, it was our flagship school. You saw it on TV, sports. And I always kind of thought that at some point I would, probably move away and do some other things in life, hopefully, at the time I was thinking. But I knew that kind of my calling card of coming back home is really being an LSU guy and being connected to, our flagship university in the state was just important to me. So I'll kind of walk you through that journey now. So next slide, please. All right, so under the stately oak. So, my time at LSU was really, I think about several key things that made a major impression on me. And you have to remember during this time, so this is the fall of 2001, right? So literally as I'm starting, my first, I don't know, maybe week or two of college was 9/11. And so I can vividly remember, because of being a part of the chancellor's aid scholarship, I had the opportunity to be assigned to do research in the School of Human Ecology. And so that particular day, we were actually wrapping up a study that we were doing on mice with looking at bone density on a P-DEXA, which is a little bitty DEXA machine. The unfortunate part of research is after you've kind of completed the research, you have to do kind of a sacrifice of the lab animals in order to study their bones and things like that. So we were actually going through that process, and there was a little radio that was in the room where we were, and the announcement came out over the radio of the horrific attacks on America. So that really kind of shaped, I think, our generation of students and really transformed how America functions today from a security standpoint, from a travel, in many different ways. I think as well in that picture there, for those who may not recognize, I don't even know if it still even exists today, but that's Kirby Smith Hall. And that's where I spent my freshman year, initially as just a resident there, but ultimately as a resident assistant. And I did a few different cycles as an RA on our campus. The next is obviously Tiger Stadium, and just the memories there, and LSU sports in general. But just a great time during my time on campus, and still today as well. Student Dietetic Association, obviously I was a student, and I don't know if the demographic has changed somewhat, but I think being a male in dietetics was somewhat more rare in that time, and perhaps it's still somewhat today. But it was a great opportunity, I think, for me to learn about the profession, meet great students, great faculty members there as well. And I see Dr. Judy Myhan has joined us as well, one of my professors, as well as Dr. Turi. But really a great opportunity. And you know, I think back on, we were just talking about before we got on the call about the old books that had all the majors and all the coursework in it. I'm sure it's all online now. And I remember my dad went through before I came to college, he circled 2 or 3 majors and he said, "Okay, these are the ones you're going to pick because there's a job tied to the end of it. It's not going to be a thing where you're just going to be in college and grad school in perpetuity, but you need a profession." So, and I actually, that's how I chose my major. My dad gave me 3 choices. And when I read the definition and description of it, it felt more suited to me. And so, as was mentioned, I had the opportunity to serve as the president of what was then the Student Dietetic Association. See, most things have evolved and the nomenclature of them have changed. See as well, and you know, also doing things like Leadership LSU, ODK, Mortarboard, you know, my fraternity. Those were all things that were very instrumental and really shaping me as the person I am today and what I learned, and gave me a foundation. As I mentioned before, I think at the time it was the Louisiana Dietetic Association. The name has since changed, but I was fortunate enough to be recognized as the most outstanding didactic program student, and then later the most outstanding dietetic intern as well. And I felt like I was on a track. I think there's 2 more awards that you can win as a dietitian. And at the time, my goal was to try to ultimately win them all in my career, if possible. So next slide, please. So the next slide I really dedicated to solely to one woman who's here with us today, Dr. Georgiana Turi. And I really just wanted to emphasize the impact and the importance that research you know, played in my life. I think in this particular picture, I was accepting an award, maybe my junior or senior year, that was presented to me by Dr. Turi. And as I tell people all the time, I felt like we were kind of like a little dynamic duo where we were oftentimes on just adventures around the place, you know, traveling to New Orleans and different places, and going over to Pennington Biomedical Research Center. And, you know, just how instrumental Dr. Turi was in ensuring that what I think was having an opportunity as a undergraduate to do really graduate level research and to be able to be fortunate enough to be included, you know, as a co-author on, you know, papers, as well as going to present the research. I remember us going to Atlanta for a conference and having a poster there that was able to present. And so, you know, I wanted to give you a sense of some of the things. And we had actually a grant that was funded through the Ag Center. And that really kicked off a lot of the work that we were doing, looking at osteoporosis and osteopenia, and some of that work, and being able to go out to, you know, health fairs at churches, and be able to engage with the community was really just a great opportunity. And I think really sparked my intellectual curiosity of being able to have a question and research that question, come up with answers and solutions. And I've been able to cascade that forward into, you know, my current work. And it's always really kept me with a keen focus, even though I'm a practitioner now. But I still like to have really more of an academic focus. And what does the data take us? What does the research say about these various things? And it's funny, even to this day, I'm working with a company that does AI here in the Valley, specifically about osteopenia and osteoporosis. So don't ever believe that it won't come full circle. To this very day, I'm still in this actually work, and I could talk about P-scores and correlations in this very same work with some level of comfort with tech companies, all because of some of this early work that I was doing as an undergraduate at LSU. So I just wanted to, since she's here, you know, say it's important to give people their flowers while they're still here, I wanted to certainly do that for Dr. Turi and thank her for the indelible mark that she's left on me. So next slide. So I wanted to give you just a sense of kind of how my time has progressed since I've been away from LSU. So I was in addition to being a nutritional sciences, it kind of went from dietetics to nutritional sciences, I think, and it may be something different today. Major. I was also pre-med at the time. And so my initial thought is that I wanted to be a sports nutritionist and a sports medicine physician. And I wanted to, be able to work for professional teams and, really open my own kind of consultative practice and do things of that nature. So that was really my goal as I embarked upon the profession. I was fortunate enough to be accepted, one of 3 people, into the dietetic internship at North Oaks, which happened to be basically in my hometown. So I was one of those boomerang college students who went to college and then boomerang back home to your parents' house. And so I went back home and I did my my dietetic internship there at North Oaks, and had just a phenomenal experience. I actually stay in touch with the director of food services and my program director on Facebook to this day, who are both still around. And so going through the various components of the internship, and one in particular really kind of gave me this exposure that shifted my career. So at the time, I've always been kind of the person who I am now. And so I was there in the internship, making PowerPoints for administration of the hospital to, kind of promote. I wanted to have limited order writing privileges for dietitians within scope of practice. I'd done this research in California that dietitians could actually write orders. And I was trying to get it sent to the medical executive committee. And they were like, who's this kid with these PowerPoints who's wanting to meet with administration of the hospital? And I had put together some cost saving measures for the food services department. And I think the one thing that really kind of like tipped it over the edge, I had asked to shadow the COO of the hospital, because I was kind of interested in how did the hospital work? I mean, I know what I'm doing here. How does it all work together? So they were like, hey, this guy, go back on the floor and see patients. So the program director actually set me up with her close friend, a guy by the name of Brian Jakes, and he was the CEO of what we call AHEC, the Area Health Education Centers, and they place physicians into rural and underserved communities. And he was the CEO of South Louisiana. So for my community rotation, after I went through the health department in WIC, a couple other things really quickly to get that done, they sent me over to Brian Jakes. He actually took me around, really all around South Louisiana, to all sorts of meetings. He would give me these things called pearls of wisdom, and I had like a little bitty black notebook that I would flip over and I'd write it down when he would give me a pearl of wisdom. And he really taught me about the business of healthcare and just business acumen in general, and how I apply that to healthcare at large and what I was doing. And so there's lots of opportunities that were presented. I was fortunate enough to be a regular on a local access show called the Rosa Dunn Show, and I would dispel nutritional myths in the community. And I learned how TV actually worked at that point too, because I made all the questions. So she would say, well, Ken, can you tell me about, I'm curious about this. Like, hey, that's a great question, Rosa. I'm glad you asked that. I'll give the answer. So I learned how TV actually is made, from that as well. And so, as I was progressing through my internship and was, recognized as the most outstanding dietetic intern in Louisiana, I wanted to do something that was going to have an impact more globally. I at the time, as a clinician, I thought, hey, I can see X amount of people per day, X amount per week, and a month. And I just kind of said, hey, if I do this for 30 years, this is how many people I'll actually see and be able to directly impact. And how can I do something that's going to allow me to impact people on a much broader scale, either in my entire community, my state, region, or maybe nationally or globally. And so I started thinking that, hey, I want to do something on a larger scale. So I actually pivoted from that point. I completed my internship and decided to take a job as an executive recruiter, recruiting hospital administrators, a lot of allied health. So I would actually place food services directors in hospitals, nursing directors, some physicians and nurses as well around the country. And I did very well at that work. I was back in Baton Rouge at the time, and I was recognized as kind of co-rookie of the year for the company. But I found that I was too tangential to healthcare at that point, because I was really deep in as a clinician, and then I moved into the point where I was on the outskirts, really just trying to find talent for hospitals. And so at the time, a close friend of mine, and we were buddies in college, fraternity brothers, and did research together with Dr. Turi, Jarek Sims. He had decided to go on to do a master's in healthcare administration. So he was telling me about the field, that, hey, you should check this out. I just got into a program at the University of Arkansas. So I started exploring it. And then, I said ultimately, well, where do all the, what are the top programs in the country? And where do all the major decisions get made related to healthcare? And so at the time, University of Michigan was the #1 program. Even VCU was #4 down in Richmond. And I said, well, that's great, but when the decisions get made, they don't go to Ann Arbor in the snow to make the decisions. They come to DC. So I said, well, what's the best school I can get into around DC? And it was GW in Georgetown. I did some more research on Georgetown, and I really like that it's the oldest Jesuit Catholic university in the country. And as I researched more about just the Jesuit principles, the men and women for others, the cura personalis, the care of the total person, and it's really this sort of deep introspection and really the Jesuits being sort of the intelligentsia of Catholicism. It was really the right school for me. I didn't know much about the university before that, outside of Georgetown basketball. We were just kind of famous, but it was an incredible school, from the School of Foreign Services and all these other areas of expertise, and all of our leaders around the world and country. So I only applied to one school, and I was fortunate enough to actually be admitted there. I was also as well fortunate enough to receive a scholarship through, at the time, HCA, Hospital Corporation of America. The Corus Boyd Scholarship would actually allow me to go fully funded to Georgetown, which was their first fully funded student ever in that program, which I don't know how much you know about Georgetown, but it's like a 35 grand a year kind of school. And so it funded me, I think, to the tune of 90,000 to get my master's in healthcare administration. And it was great opportunities, and the access to people. When we had a health law class, it wasn't just read about it in the textbook. It was like, hey, go down to Capitol Hill and sitting on this congressional hearing while they grill the insurance companies about their rates and things like that. And so we would have foreign ministers of health who would come to our school. And I can remember one day just kind of walking up on campus behind someone. I said, hey, that guy looks a lot like Joe Lieberman. So I walk up past him and turn around, and sure enough, it is. He's walking on campus. He's a former senator, I believe from Vermont, if I recall correctly. And so just that sort of access to, people and different thoughts were great. I later transitioned on to do some postgraduate training. The first of which was going to Johns Hopkins Health System. They have an internal consultancy called Operations Integration. And so they do a lot of the process improvement, clinical improvement work, and operational integration of new acquisitions, things of that nature. And so I was a young intern working in what they call the Thunderdome, which is, as you see, it's kind of a dome. That's the original building. So we worked up in the top of that dome with all the interns in a little joint room. And I learned a lot there around really academic medicine and how research and medicine and healthcare integrates. And I was just kind of, milling about the entire organization, just finding, I would look up people online, and I just go to their office and set up meetings. And I met with, the international division and a lot of other places around that organization. And at the time, I had the opportunity to then go and do an administrative residency with HCA. And I did that in a hospital that was just starting construction in Virginia. So that takes me to my next slide. So I'll go in order of these. So to the top left-hand corner is Spotsylvania Regional Medical Center. That's located in Fredericksburg, Virginia, in Spotsylvania County. I had the opportunity to join that team. It was all dirt, and they were just putting up the shear wall for the elevator. They had just hired a new CEO. He was working out of a hotel room. And I called back to HCA Corporate and said, hey, I want to do a residency. Can you link me up with the hospital? Say, we just hired a new CEO, call him up, set up an interview, and good luck. So I did. I came on board because I had a background in executive recruitment. I was instrumental in helping him recruit and hire the rest of the C-suite of the hospital. And so we were the founding administrative team that actually built and founded that hospital. And so one of the I think, crowning achievements of my career that I had a chance to do at the very beginning of my administrative career. And through that time, I went from, well, actually I did my residency while I was still at Georgetown there. I left and went to Hopkins to do the operation integration. And then I got invited to come back as the assistant administrator of the hospital, which is kind of like the vice president of operations. And so I had done those two roles. And then I was admitted into the chief operating officer development program with HCA. And you get the title of associate COO. And so I did associate COO 1 at Spotsylvania. And then I was promoted and actually went over to become the associate COO 2 in the bottom left-hand corner. That's Chippenham Hospital, which is located in Richmond, Virginia. It's a part of a larger medical center called CJW. So the JW portion is Johnson Willis. And so the hospitals are about 5 miles apart. And so I was really doing the work that I did at Spotsylvania, but for both hospitals at the time, and both were probably 3 to 5 times as large as the previous hospital. So gave me a lot of great experience in terms of learning overall hospital operations. And interestingly, through all of these various roles I've done in my career, the food services department and dietitians have all kind of reported up to me. So it's always interesting to say, hey, he started in our career, and we still have that kinship of how my career started. And so I, moving from Richmond to the top right-hand corner, I was promoted to become a chief operating officer. And so I moved to an area that's called Trinity, Newport Richey, Florida. It's about 20 minutes or so north of Tampa. So in the Tampa Bay area. And I served as the chief operating officer of that hospital almost 4 years exactly to the date. And it's a company that's very large. I'm not sure how much you may know. HCA Healthcare is probably one of the largest or the largest health system in all of America. It has about 185 hospitals. Tulane Hospital is one of our hospitals there in Louisiana. But we're scattered 21 states, about 40 markets, and we have 6 hospitals in the UK. But we have a total of about 2,000 sites of care. So another 150 freestanding emergency rooms, 180 urgent care centers, 150 surgery centers. So there's lots of places where you can kind of move around in your career. And when you tend to do well, you tend to just get, moved to the next opportunity, sort of like the military or GE, some of these large Fortune 500 or Fortune 50 companies. And that's really what happened with me. I was open to, finding new opportunities. And what was most important as well that I'll mention at the end of my presentation was around mentorship and sponsorship. So through the executive development program, I had the opportunity to actually be linked up with the CEO of the entire corporation, who happened to be my mentor. And he also not just, we had weekly, sometimes and monthly and quarterly calls, but he also served as a sponsor. And so, and there's a very big difference. So mentors can kind of give you insight and guidance and kind of tell you some things you can do. A sponsor opens doors and creates opportunities for you. And that's something he did. He actually one day said, "Hey, Ken, you really need to link up with the other operators in the company. They leave me to deal with the street, Wall Street, being a publicly traded company, but these guys really run the company day to day." And I said, "Well, I don't have a relationship with them." So he literally took me around to each person on the executive team, all the operators, and took me to their offices personally, introduced me, kind of linked me with them. And those have been things that have really kind of continued to help grow and evolve my career as I've moved today. And then that leads me to my most recent job opportunity. So in the bottom right-hand corner is my hospital today. So Regional Medical Center of San Jose, located here in San Jose, California, kind of in the hub of Silicon Valley. So for me, within 5 minutes to 30 minutes in every direction is Cisco, Adobe, Google, Facebook, Apple, Lyft, Uber, pretty much every app that you have on your phone. They're all kind of located right here around us. And so, it's an interesting thing to just kind of be in Silicon Valley. And for the positives and the challenging things, with all that immense wealth that all these tech companies have, it has one of the largest wealth disparities of probably the entire world. So, as a place, it's probably one of the richest nations, just Silicon Valley by itself, in the entire world. But there's also still rampant homelessness, food insecurities, things that you couldn't even imagine that in some instances. And I know, Lindsay, your brother is in San Francisco, and he probably tells you a lot about just the homelessness that's everywhere. It's all this wealth that's generated here, but you still have that. And so that really impacts you when you think about how do you make a difference as a leader, and how do you do your day-to-day job, but it does weigh on you in terms of how can you continue to make a larger global impact in the work that you do. So next slide. So I just wanted to wrap up with 2 more slides and first talk about, well, what's most important to me. So I've been fortunate enough to do a lot of things in my professional career and personally, and really travel around the world over the last 10, 15 years and see a lot of great things, whether it's Angkor Wat in Cambodia, or the Great Pyramids, or Iceland, which I proposed to my wife, by the way, there under the Northern Lights. But at the end of the day, my family is what's most important to me, and really what motivates me each day to get up and do what I do. And so that's my wife, Erica there. She's actually educated and trained as a physicist by nature, by her formal training. She actually is working in a startup and is kind of at home with her children, but she's building her own startup right now, and kind of go figure when you're here in Silicon Valley. And then my son and my daughter, Kenny Mike as we call him, but Kenneth III, and my daughter Penelope. So I'd like to just kind of close it out with a few closing thoughts and then open up to questions. So next slide, please. So just a few things. So one, I would just always say, stay curious and looking for the next challenge. Life is going to be somewhat circuitous, and there's going to be different people who are going to come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and they will somewhat change your trajectory from where you thought you may have been going. But it's all in the journey of life that we have, and it's all meant for a purpose. I'd also say be willing to take risks, and I'd say do that on a personal and a professional level. They will pay off. I can recall when I started as my residency, there was a requirement in Georgetown that you couldn't do it at a place where you worked. So I had the honor and dubious distinction of being the first, and I think only ever since then, administrative resident in HCA who did the whole residency for free. And so I commuted 1 hour from DC down to Fredericksburg each way every day just to do that residency. And a lot of people thought I was kind of crazy to do that. I didn't have any money. I was putting all my gas on my credit cards at the time. But it really paid off and allowed me to grow a career, with this company and with the industry in general. And I stepped out and took a risk. And as I mentioned before, identify both mentors and sponsors. And so they are uniquely, they can be the same person, but not necessarily. You can have someone who just gives you great life advice, tells you how to navigate certain things. Many times you're going to be in new environments where you may be the only or the first of yourself, or doing something new, or doing something somebody gave you a chance where you really don't totally have the skill set yet. So you might have to fake it till you make it. Those things are going to happen. But a mentor can help you navigate through those waters and give you guidance on the best way to navigate those. And then, with a sponsor, you need someone who can, sometimes just pick up the phone and make a call and ask someone to give you an opportunity. Now, it doesn't mean that what got you there is going to keep you there. You have to do the work. And they're going out in many instances on their reputation, their word, creating opportunities for you. And so you have a responsibility to them to make sure you do the best job that you can do and make them proud and make them not regret, putting themselves out on a limb for you. And I think most importantly, as well, as you have a responsibility to pay that forward. So one of the things I've done is I probably mentor 15, 20 different people at different stages in their careers. And for me, it's about paying that forward, giving them the information that I've learned so they can continue to progress in their respective careers and take care of their family and do good in the world. So with that, I'll kind of pause and I'll open it up for any questions or comments or feedback that I can answer for the team.
Y'all can unmute yourselves, or if you want to drop a question in the chat, we'll monitor that as well.
I would just like to say that Kenny was a person who took advantage of the opportunities that were given to him too. And that always, Kenny, and he was I would take Kenny to a meeting, but I wouldn't see him practically from the time we arrived until the time we left, because he was always networking and he was meeting people and he was working to, make his next contact regarding this and that. And so I was always impressed with Kenny. Just took advantage of what was given to him. And then, Ken, didn't you come to LSU with one of those scholarships where you could do research for 4 years?
I did. So the chancellor's aide, and so as a valedictorian in my high school, by getting that scholarship, it allowed me, it funded me doing research for 4 years, and then we added in the grant from the accent.
Undergraduate research grant, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And those have just been released, undergraduates who are listening. So I encourage you to find a faculty member to work with and apply for one. Those are wonderful things. They give you money to go to meetings, to pay for posters, a little bit for research. But Kenny, I'm sorry, Ken.
That's my name too. You can.
As I told Miss Ryan, this is Kenny for the duration. But I would take you to a meeting, and then that was the last I saw of you. And I remember saying, good night, I'll see you in the morning. And you were like, oh, I'm going to meet with so-and-so at such and such. And like half the night you were networking and meeting other people. And so there's just an awful lot of taking advantage of what you've been given. And I just always admired that about Ken, that and then I think another thing that was really instrumental in your time at LSU was being part of the LSU, what was that called? The small group of people who were seniors that got to do all those, what was that called?
Yeah, Leadership LSU.
Leadership LSU. So those of you who are eligible, apply for that opportunity. Leadership, oh, they're good. I mean, Annabelle's put it up about the undergraduate research grants.
Ken, can you talk, just in your presentation, it's obvious that you moved, or, you went to different states throughout your career, and, not opposed to moving. And so talk about the benefits of that. And, we have students here that, sometimes are afraid to get out of Louisiana, but we try to encourage them to get those experiences. So can you give us just your thoughts on that, knowing that you did that yourself?
Absolutely. It really is one of the best things that you could possibly do. Most people I know a lot of people who've never physically left the state of Louisiana as well. It was worse even before Katrina because a lot of people got displaced. And I was similar. I had been to Mississippi. I had family. I've been to Mississippi several times as a kid. I went to Houston once, and then I went to St. Louis to visit family once. But that was kind of until I got to my senior year or junior year, and I was in Outward Bound. They took us actually to Chicago. That was the first time I ever seen like really big buildings and a lot of professionals. I'm from a small town, so most people are kind of blue collar workers. And so all the stuff I had seen on TV, I saw there in Chicago. And when I was a kid, though, I always wanted to travel the world and, see all of America, being from rural Deep South. And so I used to watch the Travel Channel as a kid and look at all these different places, which is why I was kind of a wanderlust, as I became an adult and while I've traveled to so many different countries to, experience different cultures and see different things and learn. It really changes you as a person. And I can remember my parents were very leery when I said I was going to Georgetown. They were like, well, why don't you just go to Tulane? I mean, you go to New Orleans, you stay in Louisiana. You don't need to go way out to DC. I mean, you don't know anybody out there. And so I said, no, I got to take a risk. And I think this is the right move for me to do. And literally every time, now it still saddens my mom because I've been gone since 2007 from Louisiana. So it's been quite a while. But I felt it was always the right things to do and really allow me to expand my career. And I say, even if you do it for just a little while, it will change and shape you in different ways. And as I look at some of the comments, Silicon Valley has been great. We love Richmond as well, my wife and I. Florida was okay. I mean, I liked it more than my wife did. It was too hot and humid all the time for her. She's from Nashville, Tennessee originally. And, but we've been open to move around. She's kind of picked up and moved around on this journey with me. She's lived in several places as well outside of Nashville. And, so we think a lot about, where do we ultimately want to live? That's always the question people have for me. And it's kind of hard to say. Each place has something really great to offer. For the right opportunities, I would certainly, always said that I would go. Originally, I said I'm going to leave for 10 years and come back. But I've kind of passed the 10-year mark now. And I said, well, maybe in 15 or 20. So I'm approaching the 15 mark now. But it really all comes down to what the right opportunities are. There's great, in this ecosystem being in the Valley, there's a lot of great things that, gives you exposure to tech companies and things of that nature. And so, when the time is right, I'm 3 years into this role, and at some point they'll be looking to move me on to my first CEO role, which I passed up before to do another COO role, because it's really strategically about where do you want to grow, where do you want to live, and what things do you want to get out of your role. I see there's a question around work-life balance. That's a tough one, and what you're going to find is it's a little bit of a fallacy to some degree. So I'll tell people I learned before is you'll kind of lose at something all the time. You just can't lose at the same thing all the time, right? So at some point, you're not going to get enough sleep. You're not going to eat well. You're not going to exercise. You won't spend as much time with your family. You won't spend as much time doing the work. But if any one of those you overcompensate for and starve it out and ignore it, either your health is going to fail, or you're going to lose your family, or you're going to have or you're going to lose your job, you won't progress. All those things will happen to you. And so balance is a daily thing that you're going to have to, but nothing will take the place of hard work and time. You can't beat it. You can't skirt around it. You're going to have to put the work in. So whether it's in academia, it's going to be a lot of late nights writing papers, trying to get published, going to conferences, trying to speak. You pick the profession. You pick me a profession and tell you if you want to go, rise to the top of it, where you're not going to have to put a whole lot of time, effort, and energy into it in one way, shape, or another. What I would say with building, confidence, I see another question around networking. So, you have to just do it. So by nature, I'm an introvert. I'm a Virgo, everything that comes along with being that. I'm a very reserved person. I can easily be by myself for long periods of time. Like when I was a single man, I could go home on Friday for the weekend and literally not speak to another person until Monday morning. I literally didn't use my voice the entire weekend, and I was okay with that. It like fills my energy up to be alone. So in those environments, it actually pulls energy from me. And I think with Dr. Turi and I, we balance each other out because she's the natural extrovert and I'm the introvert, but I think we're still kindred spirits at heart. And so you do those things because it's important if you want to get where you're going and you want to learn things, but you have to take that time to recharge yourself, which I often have to do as well. So it's not something that comes naturally for everyone. Some people are their social butterfly and they could talk to themselves in an empty room all night. But for some people, you're gonna have to force yourself out of the shell. By the nature of the work I do, it's a very people interactive. So I'm doctors, community, patients, employees, vendors. You're having to talk to people all the time. So I force myself into that, but I'm usually drained by the end of it. I need to recharge and be by myself. Other questions I can answer for the group? Well, I think I'll just part with saying I think you all are, it's just really an incredible time, I think, in our country. I think to be a student, you think about the resources and things that you have. There was no way we could have ever done something of this sort when I was where you are in school. So I think technology and the way the world is evolving, presents many great challenges, but I think what also with great challenges, it creates a lot of opportunities as well. And so what I tell people is when you find situations or areas of uncertainty, I think that's where you should actually head in because most people are heading out. And so it creates a space and opportunity for you to be able to do something that creates value and that's of use to people in society as well, no matter what that is, but you can apply that to everything.
Mr. West, this is Jeannie Eubanks. Tell me what has changed for you during this pandemic, and especially being from the standpoint in the healthcare industry.
Right.
What
So,
is
good. So, we, the way we do business, we were probably the hardest hit hospital in all of the San Francisco Bay Area. And partially because of the community we serve. So we are probably, hospital serves probably as 40% Vietnamese. And the majority of the people who live in the area are foreign born, not native English speakers, typically lower socioeconomics. And so they oftentimes work in multi-generational households. They, unfortunately, like other people here in the Valley, couldn't, like me and you, we could just talk virtually. Well, they have to go to work and work shoulder to shoulder with people, don't have the ability to socially distance like everyone else in the Valley. And so they were disproportionately impacted by COVID and really ravaged through their community. And so for us, I think we have been able to, being a part of a large health system, leverage technology to understand the disease pathway better, how treatments work, how we really lock down our facilities, right? So there's only two, for a hospital that has like probably 20 ways to enter it, there's only 2 ways you can get in now, and you have to be screened, with a thermometer. Actually, these little digital ones you walk up to and it scans your face and all these things. But It's all these things, the way we've changed and using personal protective equipment, called PPE.
Mhm.
And just a lot of the way we kind of conduct business has changed. And it's much like what happened with 9/11. The world changed. There was a dramatic
Mhm.
shift in travel and security and privacy. A lot of different things changed because of that.
Mhm.
And likewise here, you've seen a lot of businesses that have disappeared. A lot of
Mhm.
companies have said, hey, do we really need that big building in that expensive city downtown when we've proven that we can, and now we could tap into a more diverse pool of people. So maybe you can reach out to find that random person in Arkansas who could do that work, but who doesn't want to relocate to San Francisco. So
Mhm.
I think it really creates opportunities where before we were so caught up on people having to physically be in places.
Mhm.
Now it's tiring, we all get Zoom fatigue, but I tell you, just from an efficiency standpoint, I have many more 15 and 30-minute meetings than I ever had. I don't have to run around, go across town, meet people I could get on, knock that meeting out. I don't have to fly across the country to come for a meeting.
Mhm.
We can do that in 2 hours and be done. So there's a lot of things that are going to probably not change back, but I think it's, in many ways for the better. For some ways it's going to be different, and we'll have to evolve as we do, but humans are resilient. We find new ways to work through what new challenges are presented.
Mhm. Thank you very much. Brian Jakes is still around. I know
Is he?
him.
I need
Yes.
to look him up.
He's still there. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Ken. I think we actually have one more question in the chat. What has been your biggest challenge from the time you were at LSU and throughout your career?
But my biggest challenge, I think limiting yourself. We tend to place limits on ourselves, and we can tell ourselves a story um, really good. We do that really well, and why we can't do something. When you don't get out certain opportunities, or when you're in certain spaces where you're the first person doing that, or it's new to you. You can struggle with imposter syndrome. All these sorts of things that are just innately some of the challenges that hit us as humans. Everyone experiences them. People may not talk about them, but they're all there. And I think, the more you can begin to, unshackle the mind and not hold yourself back on, why not me? Why can't I do this? I should be there. What you begin to learn is the further you move up and the more things you do, you begin to learn that sort of the mystique around people and things begins to drop off, because you learn that, hey, it's knowable. If this person can learn it, as long as I can read or listen, I can actually learn the same thing as well. And so the more you learn and understand that, you begin to demystify anything. So when you start thinking about, well, why can't you, decide that, hey, I want to be a dietitian and one day I want to be a hospital CEO. Like, that's not impossible to do. It just depends on, do you want to take the steps? Do you want to put in the work? Do you want to build the relationships that are going to get you there? Or do you want to build a $1 billion company? There's nothing ultimately that will stop you if you put your mind to it and put the work in and learn what it takes to actually do it.
Well, thank you, Ken. I know our students definitely got a lot out of your presentation today, and I appreciate you taking the time to visit with us and just kind of outline your career and your career path, and give some great recommendations throughout the presentation as well. I can only imagine how busy your schedule is. So again, we can't thank you enough for speaking to our students and our staff and faculty members today. And so without that, I just have a couple of reminders for our students. Our next alumni speaker series, we're going to have Dr. DQ Fields. And that's going to be on March 19th. So mark your calendars for that. Also, I just want to remind you guys that March 1st is the deadline to apply for scholarships. So if you haven't done also already, please do so. I've included the link in the chat to apply. So make sure you take advantage of the opportunities that are available through that link. And then Ag Week's coming up March 15th through the 19th. So mark your calendar. We have some great things planned for you guys that week. And so make sure you're checking your email and signing up for things that we have scheduled. And again, I put in the chat earlier, but we would love your feedback from today's presentation. So please take a minute to complete the survey. And we always have to end, Ken, with Go Tigers. And so thank you, everyone.